going to welcome Vanessa to enlighten us tonight and teach us how to keep our kids safe in relationships.
Thank you, Jennifer. I'm so excited to be here today. Really eager to be with you. I noticed some of you are from Sarasota as well. I work in Sarasota. Hey, Linda. And Susie, I noticed as well. I work in Sarasota, and I have worked in Sarasota for the past 4 years with young adults and with youth, anywhere up to age 25 experiencing a mental health challenge. So I love working in the youth space. I love using my lived experience and has really formed where I'm going with my career. So before I came to Sarasota, I was working in Pinellas. I was volunteering with them actually, and I helped co-create Youth Move Pinellas, youth-led organization that offers support to youth 10 to 29 years old. And then I went on to co-create Youth Move Suncoast, which is our Sarasota chapter that we have. Thank you for pulling that up. And after that, I transitioned into peer support. So peer support has been a wonderful experience. I've worked with numerous queer youth in Sarasota County, as well as in Manatee County. And I was able to provide mental health support just with my own lived experience and trainings. And I was able to be there, be with these kids, and just support them through whatever they're going through. Since then, I've transitioned, and now I oversee a project called the Lean on Me Project. We are within your schools if you're in Sarasota County. We're in 11 schools, and I'm really excited. This is my favorite thing in the world. We have small group mentoring, and we talk about relationships all the time. Every day I'm talking about this because this is the one topic that the students are most curious about, because we're not getting any education on it. So go figure, right? We're not being able to hear about it in schools. And even when we do have good relationships with our parents and our guardians, there is just, I don't want to say that disconnect, but there's a difference between our parents' generation and our generation, and our kids' generation and all the in between. So let's go ahead and dive into it. Jennifer, if you don't mind, we can go to the What We're Seeing page. I already gave my introduction. So hi, thank you for having me. All right. I love this page because it has my little gay frog on it. Okay, so all of our youth want to be respected. They want to be loved. They want to feel safe. But why is that not happening? It's quite an interesting age to be at. We're having all these hormonal changes. We're having these shifts in our schools and who we're being with, and we're not having that support at school. So it is up to us as their caregivers to help them understand the tools that can help them foster those feelings of safety with their romantic partners, within their friendships, and within their families. I'm noticing that sometimes red flags can even be mistaken as normal aspects of relationships, even desirable aspects, like possessiveness, for instance, is really a big one that I'm noticing with the youth I work with. And today we're going to identify some of these challenges that the youth face and different aspects of their relationships and how to build up these positive relationships with them. So we'll get a chance to go over some red flags. We'll get a chance to go over some online dating considerations, because that is really big and I don't see it going away anytime soon. And some tools for us to learn how to build healthy relationships with our kids. So according to the CDC, teaching teens skills for healthy relationships can help them know what a healthy relationship looks like, believe that they deserve healthy relationships, and engage in those positive behaviors. So we're going to start with the most important thing, I feel like, to set our baseline is consent. And this is thanks to Planned Parenthood. I love this model, and I even have the little stickers, so sometimes I give those out. So shout out to Planned Parenthood. This is a really easy way to understand consent. What is consent? I'm giving someone permission to do something that I want to do. And they use the acronym FRIES. And when we teach consent for younger kids, I'll often use FRIES as an example. Like literally, we're talking about fried sticks of potatoes. So consent is freely given. If I'm offering you these fries, hey, do you want some fries to eat? Yeah, sure. There's no coercion here. I'm not saying you must eat your fries or you won't get dessert. There is no ifs, ands, or buts. It's just if you want it, you can have it. It's reversible. If you start eating it and you decide, I don't really like these, that's okay. You can stop. You can stop at any point. It's informed. You know that I fried it in peanut oil. Well, if you're allergic to peanuts, you don't want that. We can speak on that. It's enthusiastic. I'm not going to force you for this. I'm not going to say, are you sure you don't want the fries? No, if you're excited about the fries, I'll give you the fries. If you're like, I don't know, I'm not going to give them to you. And specific, if you say, I like my fries with ketchup, then we'll make sure you have your fries with ketchup. So when we're teaching consent, we want to make sure that we're teaching it early, that we're teaching it often. We are always giving that opportunity for our youth to give consent. So one option for this is if we're modeling consent in the home and we have a choice for our kids to make, okay, here's choice A or choice B, you can pick one. There has some buy-in, they're deciding for themselves, but it's those two choices that you approve. That's wonderful. That's a way that we can model it. Or if we have partners, in front of my partner, I can model consent to them. Can I give you a hug? Consent involves hugs, high fives, kisses, anything sexual. So there's plenty of opportunities for us to model young and model early. We're talking about consent with our older kids, our teenagers, our young adults. We do want to be specific. We want to give really specific examples. We want to be nuanced. We want to share that this is what you are comfortable with. And we're going to explain a little bit about boundaries as well to really get into that later. But consent is really just that baseline that I wish all kids had before it's a question. Knowing that they have the right to, over their own body, they have the right to say no, they have the right to say yes, and then change their mind and say no. So giving those examples can be really important. We will have some time at the end for questions, but for now, I'm wondering if anyone has any questions on our consent before we move on. Alrighty, I think we can go to the next one, respect. All right, thank you. So just like consent, respect is a key foundation for our relationships. We want our kids to feel safe. We want them to feel secure. How do we build this? Well, modeling that respect is super important for them. If we are not being respected in our own houses, and if we're not showing respect to them, to our partners, to our animals, to our environments, they're not going to be able to either. So how can we help? Obviously, modeling is wonderful. And then calling it out. If you're hearing about it, if you're seeing it, if your kids' friends are over and they're making jokes, we're going to stop it. We're going to address it in the moment. You being an ally to your child, first and foremost, is reinforcing that they can do this for themselves, that they can stand up for themselves as well. And that also says, you don't deserve that. I'm not going to take that. You shouldn't take that nonsense either. And then we can provide validation, we can give them resources, and we can provide support as their caregivers. Sometimes they come to you with all this on their chest, and all they want is to be heard. They don't need you to solve their problem. They probably have a solution in mind, or maybe they've even implemented a solution already. We are just here to listen to them, to be there for them. And if they're open to our suggestions, giving those suggestions to them with that consent in mind. So just a special consideration here. And I would just like to note, as I'm going through this, I use the blanket term or umbrella term queer to encompass anyone under the LGBTQ plus umbrella. Some people still use that term. Some people no longer use that term. This is really common where I am and in my line of work. So this is what I'll be using today. Just wanted to point that out in case you hear it and you're like, what is that? That's just all of us here under the umbrella. So Queer youth often report lack of trust in the adults in their lives for support around dating or sexual violence. They can often lack connections to community supports available to them. There's a lack of queer visibility and representation in their school curriculums, which we are well aware of. There's a lack of sexual education and history specifically. There's lack of adults presence to effectively engage with queer youth. So all of us who are on this call today are that present adult for somebody in our lives, and we have a lot to do because unfortunately our kids aren't getting that support in all of their corners. And to continue this support, it also takes not just us working with our kids, but us working with other adults in their lives to help boost that support for them. So I'd like to go on to digital safety.
I have a really cute story about respect, if you'll let me
Yeah,
share my story.
please.
And the reason, because I'm reading all this and I was like, wow, I love this. And I feel like with my child when he was in preschool, so imagine like we're talking about consent and respect. And a lot of times we think, right, that it's just when they're in the dating age, but really it starts with friendships and allowing how others treat them. And I remember when my child was really little and he would go to preschool and he wanted to wear My Little Pony t-shirt, or a a female, stereotypical female t-shirt. And I remember having the conversation with him, like, what if, when you're on the playground, someone might say to you, that's just for girls. Like, what are you going to say? And so when you say we provide validation resources, I had this conversation with my 3-year-old and I armed him with a little saying, and he actually came up with it himself, because I said, what would you say to someone if they said that? And his little catchphrase was, well, that's just my style. And it's funny because he used that so much, like, as he got older, like, I don't think he uses it now. He probably uses something I wouldn't approve of now. But when he was little, that provided something, that resource, that validation of just, this is just who I am. And when he would say that to another child, they would go, oh, okay. And so I feel like that when we talk about respect, teaching our kids how to get respect from others by standing up for themselves and saying, like, this is just who I am. And so it just made me think of that. I want to share that quick story because you build on that, right? If you put that in place early on, we hope that they continue to demand respect for themselves from others. So now I will mute myself, but I just had to share that story.
Yes, thank you for sharing that story. I really appreciate that and you sharing your perspective. A lot of these kids are forced to assimilate, as we're going into schools or into other public spaces, maybe to even feel safer, or sometimes for our parents and our caregivers to feel safer on these children's behalf. And so I love that you're able to have those conversations at so young. Like, that is really beautiful, and it kind of disrupts that idea of like, this is just the way things are. Like, no, now this is the way things are. That is just who your kid is, and that is setting a new norm. And in doing so too, we really empower other kids, because when you see someone else doing something kind of crazy and just being themselves, and it's kind of wild, and you're like, oh wait, I could be myself too. So thank you for sharing that, Jennifer. All right, now this is really big right now. Online dating, of course, we're seeing this as we're adults, but our kids are doing it too, our young adult kids. And how do we even navigate this? So let's get into it. There are so many aspects to consider when we're talking about online dating, and there is a really good resource at the end that I implore you to click on as you get these slides. It's going to be helpful just because there's a lot more information than I could fit into here. A lot of considerations, like, for instance, verifying identities, really big. I don't know if you've ever seen the show Catfish, but there's some people who get into relationships for years and they never knew an individual's identity. And our kids, our young adults are very curious and getting online with people from even across the world. So there's some instances where, okay, well, it makes sense I'm not seeing them. It makes sense I'm not getting their picture. Their phone is broken. Whatever. We'll make sense of it because we want to make sense of it. But that is where we, as the adults in their life, can help model and help explain the importance of verifying their identity. So how can we do this? Getting on a video call. We're going to video chat. That is extremely important. So there's a lot of apps that will have like a blue check or some sort of verification system. Now, in order to do that verification system, you need to pair your ID with a picture. Well, a lot of people will do that initially, and then they'll change their pictures in order to catfish. So just because they have a blue check does not mean that is who they are. That is something to be aware of. It's important to video chat in good lighting whenever possible, the soonest possible. Before that, we're looking for red flags with them, with their profile, making sure that they seem like a safe person to even do that with. And we're going to go at our own pace. So we don't want our children to feel rushed. We don't want them to feel like, oh, I have to meet them tonight. This is when they're available, or they're just coming into town today. No, reminding them that it's okay to be slow. It's okay to go at your own pace. It's okay to take your time and to always listen to their gut. Now, when we're meeting up, definitely want it to be in public spaces. The whole point of this app is you talk to someone and then you meet them in person. Well, I would hate for my child to go meet someone in their home for the first time at night. You know, we're going to meet in public spaces, make sure someone knows where they are going, who they are with, how to contact them, and can check up in with them. They need to be in control of their own transportation. So if that means dropping them off, picking them up, staying nearby, that's a great option if you have that trust in that relationship with your child. Absolutely. Also, another warning to look out for is if they're saying that they're going to come and then they don't come and then it's continually happening. They might not be who they say they are, or they might not be in it for the right reasons. There is more information, like I said, at the end of this for you to learn more, but those are some big red flags. There's a lot of romance scams out there, not just on our dating apps, but on social media as well. Sometimes, like, there will be, there's like a sugar parent scam. I say sugar parent because, yes, there's sugar daddy scams and sugar mama scams. There's multiple types of these scams going on where someone will slide into the DMs of someone and say, oh, you know, I'm looking for someone to spoil for this much a week or this amount of dollars a month, and or I'll fly you out here, or I'll do this for you, offering these really grandiose things that seem really great in theory, but this person is random, they're DMing you. Sometimes an individual will have a private account and they'll still be DM'd for this. So really being aware and alert about these sort of things. Also, when it comes to digital safety, we do want to protect our personal information, and we want to create strong passwords. We want to watch for what we share online. So these are all really important. And when it comes to protecting personal information, we're not giving out our full names. Some people won't even give out their real name. That is something to consider. Do you feel safer with that? Is that an option for your child, giving out a nickname, or, you know, not giving out their phone number? That's a really important thing, especially if your child is a registered voter. You can look that up and you can find an address. So alternatives to think of is a texting app. You can also use social media. That is very common, which leads into our next point of watching what we share online. If our kids are giving out their social medias and they're posting, oh, I go to this school, or, oh, I just got boba at this place, my favorite boba shop, or I'm at the library, you know, we're having locations and oftentimes people that we're frequenting, that is dangerous. We do not want to be posting our locations. Now, sometimes people will post a location of them on vacation. Okay, well, I went to Mexico. well, I don't live in Mexico, so it's probably safe to post this after I'm back from Mexico. Definitely don't want individuals to be posting where they're at when they're at that place. Also, pictures, when we're posting pictures, making sure that your child is aware that if this is a very well-known place, that it can be identified. You might not have an address in the image, but if there is a landmark that is easily identified, we want to be aware of that. IDs, sometimes people will post pictures with their ID in it. You can zoom in and you can find stuff out that way. Just being really aware of what we share online. And then we can go to the next slide. I also want to note with the sharing passwords, it's important that your child knows to only keep their passwords to themselves. Sometimes we want to share with our friends, but explaining why can be really important and really preventative. There's a lot of hackers out there, which we're about to get into. So we talked about not exchanging numbers and not posting locations. Let's talk a little bit more about things to look out for when online dating. Moving too fast, like, can be a really big red flag. Asking for money is one of the biggest red flags. Sharing account passwords, sometimes there's a scam where you'll get asked for a phone number. So your child may think that's your friend asking for your phone number to get them back into their account, or maybe a significant other online is trying to get back into their account. That's usually a hacker. That's usually someone who's already hacked their account and is trying to hack yours, because when you get that phone number, they can send you that verification code, you send it to them, and now they're into your account, changing the password. So we want to keep our phone numbers and our account passwords and all of our security codes to ourselves. Very new, very notable is AI images. Of course, we've always had catfishes where people will take an image and pretend that is them. We are not immune. Our young adults are not immune either. And AI images or doctored images are also real. So an option is reverse image search for them to help verify the identities of who this is. There's also forums online where you can ask for help. Like, there's the little FBI girlies who will look it up for you and they will help you out. So that community is really important. And sometimes we have that in our own circle. So if your child is coming to you asking you for help, think about who is in your circle who could help, or who is in their circle for help. Like, hey, have you asked your friends about this? Because I know they're probably more tech savvy than me. Also, again, yeah, requesting to meet in private locations late at night or too soon into conversing with each other is a no-go. If y'all are just talking today, why are you meeting up? We want to make sure that our kids are being safe. We want to make sure that they know their rights, that they're in good places with good people, and that we know where they're at. So consider sharing your location with them and having them share their location with you, and checking in even when, okay, they've already been on a date with this individual. We're still going to check in and see how they're doing. All right, so that is a little bit about online dating. Online dating really opens up a whole nother world. There's a lot more safety considerations for us as well. So I implore you to keep learning about this because things are changing every day, especially AI. When I was online dating, there wasn't AI like that. Now there is. And so things continue to change. You can even do AI voice. So phone calling is just not cutting it anymore. You need to see a person and talk to them. And so there's a lot of considerations, but we are going to move on to social media, which does have some similar considerations. So for social media, if you've ever scrolled through TikTok, you know that the algorithms play off of our most intense emotions. They want us to keep scrolling. They want to suck us in. So that means even though I set up my feed personally to give me a lot of good information, to keep me very aware, and to honestly keep me happy, the more I scroll, the more I find myself doom scrolling. Meaning, while I am laughing, this content is really funny, I find myself crying, or maybe I'm angry, or I'm just having all of these big emotions. You scroll through something and you learn something really relevant right now, and it's really weighing heavy on you. And then you scroll, and the next one is something really funny, offering you that relief. Well, I want to find more funny things. I just went through a lot reading those statistics. I'm going to keep scrolling, looking for the funny. So I'm going to keep getting sucked in, feeling the anger and all these other emotions. Now, there are a lot of reputable sources online. There's a lot of therapists, a lot of clinicians. We have doctors, we have dentists, chiropractors, lawyers. Anyone is on social media, you name it. And that is wonderful. But there's also a lot of fake experts, fake gurus online pretending to be reputable sources. Sometimes this gets lost in translation. It is important that we talk to our families about verifying the information that we find out on social media and validating the source, especially before we share this information. So there's a lot of like appeal to authority trends going on, especially like in the health food space. Like, oh, my dad is a dietitian and he taught me this. Well, if you look up those words on TikTok, you'll find 100 videos starting out that way. Like, okay, well, are all of their dads dietitians? I'm not sure if this is actually true. So another way to verify is that check on social media. There should be a form of verification offered by that platform. I will say again, I don't think this is enough. So if you find their social media and it says Dr. Berger, go ahead and look up Dr. Berger and find out, is this a real doctor? What are they offering? A lot of the stuff that is portrayed as informational is selling us products. Our kids are not immune. We are not immune. I know sometimes I be buying into it. That's okay. We own it. We recognize, and we try to be more vigilant going forward. So it's important to not only be aware of these things when we are engaging with social media and when our kids are engaging with social media, but also to have additional conversations about boundaries with social media. So a lot of our kids stay up late at night on social media after bedtime, and they're coming to school tired, and I'm noticing because I see them every day. So having those boundaries, and how do we have those boundaries? How do we make social media a better place to be, more pleasurable, happy? We're getting our information, and it's real, reliable information, and we're not doom scrolling for 3 or more hours. We're having a select time, or a time that works for them, a schedule that works for them, to get it in and out of our systems. We want to make sure that we're building positive and genuine connections through social media. So what are we consuming? What are we sharing? Who are your kids talking to? Are they talking to strangers online? Sometimes, yes. We want to make sure that they have a positive feed. We're not going to go onto their phones and change their TikTok algorithms for them, but having those conversations about what are you consuming and how is it filling your cup? Does it feel good? Do you feel happy after you turn off your phone, or do you feel drained, like you need to recover from it? Knowing what's real and what's fake, talking to them about that, how to verify that, even just asking. Some of these things that I'm pointing out are less so, I'm telling you how to do this, and more so, hey, how do you do this? Having these conversations with open-ended questions and with genuine curiosity, because we may learn things from our youth. And then asking them, how do they protect their privacy? Not all of our kids want a private account. Some of our kids want to be influencers. Some of our kids are starting their careers and they're using social media to help launch them in that space and to get recognition. These are not all bad things, but how are they protecting their privacy in doing that? I, for one, I have a social media account for my yoga business, but I do not use my personal name. And that's just my policy. I also never post locations, so that's also a policy of mine. Handle offensive and unsafe content. How are we doing this? Are we reporting it? Are we clicking, I don't want to see this again? Let's have a strategy for this, as well as we're going to expand off of social media, encouraging your kids to read their books, encouraging them to look it up. If you're seeing this and this sounds really interesting, I'm so glad. Thank you for telling me this. Where else have you heard about this? Have you looked it up? Do you know anything more? Sometimes we get a snippet of the story and not the whole thing. I've been guilty of clicking on a headline and being like, wow, this is so crazy. Only to find out not even that it's half the story, but it's just clickbait. That's not the story. So sometimes that is what it is. We can go on to the next one, more red flags. So now we're going to talk about dating red flags. We went over our social media red flags. We went over our online dating red flags. Now that we're in relationships, what do we want our children to notice? If there's excessive jealousy, invasions of privacy, if they're monitoring and tracking each other, this is a red flag. And I'd like to note as well, as we talk about red flags, we're not assuming that our kids are the innocent ones. A lot of times it goes both ways. Something like jealousy can be fed back and forth between parties. Now, another red flag is your child's partner. If they're getting sad, they're getting upset when your child is not posting them online. You feel your feelings, and that is wonderful. But if we're using our feelings to manipulate someone else, that is where the red flag comes in. So of course, all of these have some nuance. Like in the first one, it's okay to experience jealousy because that is a normal human emotion. Now, in excess or in the expression of that, if that expression of jealousy is in an inappropriate manner through control or lashing out, then that is a red flag that we need to talk about, we need to address. Okay, anger and expectations of immediate text back. Manipulation when a partner does not get what they want. Pushing boundaries, not being respected, asking for or sending inappropriate pictures without your child's consent. Again, we're going back to consent, going back to fries. Did I say I wanted that? If it's a no, it's a no. Controlling who your child can be friends with or speak to. So again, this goes back to the jealousy and control is a big red flag to be aware of. Harassing or threatening, humiliation, and or violence. Now, some of us have youth in our life who will talk to us about these things. Some of us do not. And I notice with some of the youth that I work with, they'll almost skirt around these issues. Maybe it's brought up a little bit here, but I don't really want to get into it. Yeah, they're super jealous, but anyway, next. So being open-minded and being open to them and giving them that space and that patience with them to share with you, and also bringing it up sometimes on your own. Like if we're watching a movie and we're noticing this, maybe debriefing after the movie is over. Having those opportunities to talk about it as we're noticing it in real life, to continue to empower them to talk about it with you, with their partners, with their friends, with whomever is a safe adult in their life. All right. Let's move on to the next one, with communication. So one of my favorite activities to do with the kids that I work with is boundaries, because wow, is this a challenge for all of us at all levels, all ages, and all areas of growth. It is important that we communicate with our kids these red flags, what to look out for, what to do when we notice them, and what it means to establish a boundary and to defend a boundary. It's rare that you say a boundary once and then it's never questioned, never pushed, we're all good. Never happens. A lot of times it happens accidentally. That's okay. We are going to talk about it and we are going to work through it. So when it comes to boundaries, we're meeting the person where they're at. So if my threshold is pretty high, I'm okay with a lot of stuff. And my partner is not okay with a lot of stuff. I'm going to meet my partner where they're at. I'm not going to expect them to meet me where I'm at. One very obvious way that we can take this is with sex, for instance. So we have one individual who, would like to be intimate with their partner, and their partner is only okay with holding hands. They're only going to hold hands. We're going to meet the person where they're at the lowest threshold. It's important that our kids know it is not their responsibility to ignore their needs or comfort to meet someone else's desires. A boundary is something for me. So your child's boundary is for your child, for them to decide, not for them to place on a partner. And vice versa, a partner should not be placing limits on them. What can your child do when their boundaries are disrespected? So for me, for example, I'm just going to keep using me. If someone is yelling at me and I've set that boundary, like, I don't like it when I get yelled at, please don't yell at me. I'm letting them know my need, and they continue to yell. Okay, well, maybe I defend my boundary one more time. That's an option. But what do I do when they don't honor it? Please stop yelling at me. Can we have a calm conversation? If I'm told no and they keep yelling, it's now my turn. I get to walk away. I get to choose what I'm doing. I can't make them stop yelling. That is not on me to force anything onto anyone else. But in order to respect where I'm at and my own needs, I need to choose what to do. We can model this for our kids as well as talk to them about this, because talking about it is not enough. Giving examples is great, and continuing to talk about it, just like consent. We set that baseline and then we keep coming to it, especially as we continue to grow and evolve. My 12-year-old is not going to have the same problems as my 20-year-old. So let's continue to grow with them. Boundaries are just an act of co-establishing a norm within a relationship. They're perfect to have. It's a beautiful process. We're not often told about it. And a lot of kids just go in and they're like, man, this thing hurt, but they didn't know how to talk about it. You want to establish a boundary before it's crossed. And then talking about how do we recover from that as well? How do we rebuild our trust? Which goes into our next point, problem solving. So a lot of kids are exposed to that narrative of just break up or stay with them. There's a lot more in between that. Okay, if we're breaking up, why are we breaking up? How do I give myself what I need? And we can go on to the next slide for this. Sorry, I just knocked my computer. And if we're staying with them, how is the problem being resolved? So, I really wish we taught this more in schools, but it's up to us, as we do, and that is a wonderful privilege to have. How do we have disagreements? How do we, instead of escalating to fights, how do we have arguments or disagreements in a healthy manner for all of us, where all of our needs are getting met, we're all being heard, and we do this productively, and we do this with compassion for each other? How are we modeling conflict for them? This is something we could teach them and teach them and teach them. And if they're coming home and living with me and I'm not doing that with my friends, I'm not doing that with my partner, and I'm not doing that with my kid, they're not going to get it. So we need to be able to model effective problem solving and share the strategies that work for you. So I'm going to share a form of problem solving called nonviolent communication. That might not work for you. It's based on an I statement. Some people hate I statements. They're like, don't give me any of that. That's crap. And I don't talk like that normally. If that's not normally how you talk, that's fine. That's absolutely fine. Some people would like to get on the floor and talk while they're both sitting on the floor. And that's a wonderful way to regulate your nervous system. Some people feel silly doing that. I've definitely offered that before and been laughed at. Like, what do you mean get on the floor? I'm like, what do you mean you don't want to get on the floor? That's going to help calm me down. Some people need a blanket or a weighted something to have really intense conversations. If you need your creature comforts, let's invite that in. Let's normalize that for our kids and the youth in our communities. It's okay to listen to your needs. I personally prefer to be outside whenever I have to have a really big conversation because it helps regulate me. So we're going to learn how to regulate our nervous systems. We're going to model that, and we're going to share that with our kids. Sometimes that's just breathing together. Sometimes it's giving a hug before or after an argument. Sometimes it's having alone time and calming down before we have these arguments. It looks different for all of us, and that is okay. So we're going to go into the next slide, which is I statements and nonviolent communication. So nonviolent communication is just a form of I statements with a little pizzazz. I feel blank when blank occurs. Not I feel angry when you yell at me. We're going to try to take that you away entirely. I feel hurt when I am yelled at. This is because of, and then you put your need here. What do you need in this moment? This is because of my need to feel respected. And now we'll end with what we're asking for. What do we want to change? Next time, can I ask you to use a calm voice with me? Okay. So this is only to start the conversation. If I'm being yelled at, there's probably something on their end that they needed and weren't getting, and that's why they were yelling. So can I ask you to use a calm voice with me? Is there anything you need in order to be able to do that? Maybe we need a break. Maybe we need to take 5 minutes to regulate and come back. So I feel this emotion when this thing occurs. This is because of my need for this thing. Next time, can you do this with me instead? So that is a little snippet of nonviolent communication. We do have about 10 minutes, so I am going to just go ahead to the resources page where you will see everything is hyperlinked here for you to look at later. I included the Lean On Me project because that is the project I oversee. And if you're in Sarasota County schools, I might be in your school. I'm in middle school and elementary schools, along with my wonderful co-facilitators. The Trevor Project has a lot of great resources about online dating, dating violence, queer youth mental health, as well as a wonderful hotline for them if they ever need that care. There's a little bit more information on romance scams, on social media. There's a nonviolent communication worksheet, a little bit more information on red flags, and then of course, Planned Parenthood and their wonderful consent model for fries. We've got 9 minutes left, so I'm gonna go ahead and open the floor to any questions that we may have. You can always leave them in the chat if that is better for you. I'll be watching it.
That was amazing, Vanessa. I learned so much. And I think that, dating and relationships now versus when any of us were navigating that are so different. And so for us, I mean, I know my child has a Snapchat, and when you talk about the location, I realized he had his location on, and all his friends had his location on. And you look at his phone, and he could tell you where everybody was. We would be driving in the car, and be like, "Oh, yeah, my friend lives here and here," and that was, he didn't realize that really could be scary, that folks can find where you are at all times. So yeah, like kind of seeing what our kids are doing, and he had it on for a while. I didn't even know he had it on, but that is a scary thing. And these were great tips. Thank you so much.